for your kind invitation. It's always a big emotion to speak in front of a lot of people. I usually speak very quickly, so if I do, please stop me, because otherwise it will be difficult to follow. So when I was invited here, I was proposed to speak about a strategy for a creative Europe. Actually, I think that the strategy is set, the strategy is there. Europe has produced lots of policy documents, of strategy documents. And this is a key moment, because right now the European institutions are working on the new policies and programs, financing programs for the period 2014-2020. So I think that this is a very good moment for regional and local authorities to think about next steps and what cities and regions can do once the strategy has been set. So how can cities and regions nurture a creative Europe, and what kind of challenges and opportunities they face and that they should size. When speaking about culture, so I think there are three main issues that should be tackled. First of all, what we mean by culture and creative industries, what we mean by culture. By the way, I will be talking about culture and creative industries, not simply art, not simply culture, not simply about creative industries, but culture and creative industries as a whole. And I will propose to you a definition, which is of course not a standard definition, which does not exist, but a definition that KA has proposed in one of its studies. But it still remains pretty anecdotal, and each city or region usually creates its own definition based on its local data and its local resource, and I think this is completely legitimate. The other great issue that we are facing right now is about why to invest in culture today. Is it a luxury? Is it necessary? Do we really need culture? And if so, why? And why we should allocate some budget to culture in a time of crisis. And then, of course, the key issue about Europe. Is it Europe a cultural project? I found the initial speech by Juan very inspiring, because he was saying Europe is the only mental space which justifies the European project, if I remember correctly. And I really like this definition, that right now actually is a moment of crisis also of Europe actually, and of crisis of Europe as a political project. So my question is, can we try to rethink Europe through culture? Can we try to rethink Europe as a cultural project and not simply as an economic and political project? So we'll go through all these questions throughout my presentation. So first of all, the definition of culture and creative industries. So this is taken from a study that KA completed in 2006 for the European Commission on the economy of culture in Europe. So it was basically the first study which tried to quantify the economic impact of culture and creative industries at economic level, so basically on employment and on GDP. And KA tried to give a comprehensive definition of culture in divided the subsectors of the cultural creative industry in three main groups. So we have this first group, which is called the core arts group, where basically we find the visual arts, the performing arts, and the heritage. The second group, so it's the cultural sector, stems from the idea that culture is also an input to cultural production in other sectors. And this would be the audiovisual sector, the music sector, and the publishing, books and press. And then there would be another sector, the creative sectors, where culture is still very much an input to creation, but in order to give out not really cultural products, but more kind of creative products. And here we find design, we find architecture, we find fashion. And then there would be, but this was not considered for the economic impact itself, but just to try to understand how the scope of cultural creativity is broad, we have the related sectors. And these are sectors which, in a way, are related or depend or are nurtured by cultural creativity, such as education, such as software, such as tourism, industrial design, etc. The results from this study tells that the sector has a huge impact on the economy. These figures are not very recent because this date from 2003, but actually there are new studies now which have confirmed these figures, which are even increased. Now actually the contributions to GDP of the sector is nearly 4% in European GDP, and in terms of employment, we have more than $6 million, which are created by this sector. And even more interesting, probably you're aware of some of these studies, some countries have tried to understand what has been the economic impact of this sector during the economic crisis. And particularly interesting, if you can you click on this graph? Yeah, this one. We can see that, of course, I mean, there has been a general decline in the entire economy, so also in the manufacturing industry and also in the craft culture businesses. These are data from Germany. But while, I mean, the decrease of employment in the manufacturing sector has been really big, in the cultural creative industries has been much lower. And if we go ahead, okay. Can you click below? Yeah, yeah. Okay, and in Italy another report was made, and surprisingly, well, the cultural creative industries in the crisis period of 2010, the nominal value increased by 3%, and also employment actually was increased, not a lot, but increased against a general decline in the other sectors of the economy. However, someone reminds us, and this is not a Marxist scientist actually, that not everything that counts can be measured, and not everything that can be measured counts. So what about all these numbers? And actually, focusing on my presentation is not about numbers, not simply about economic impacts, but I would like to go a step beyond and try to understand why, beyond the economic impact, this sector is important. So why does CCI matter then? So it's everything linked to the concept of the new economy, and we cannot skip this new concept. We cannot skip with the new context that we are living in. The new economy, we heard a lot about this. It's about innovation. It's about experimentation. It's about the shift from an industrial economy to a service economy to an experience economy. It's also an economy characterized by new values. It's not simply today about productivity, but it's about sustainability and sustainable development. It's also a society very much led by new technological development, the unique digital technologies, which have a broad impact on society in terms of new economic models, but also in terms of social behavior. It tends to do technology that culture has been very much democratized. And of course, people are much more educated. Consumers are much more demanding. So it's not simply about creating a product, creating services, but creating a distinctive product and a distinctive service, creating a distinctive city which is able to attract talents. So innovation, the kind of innovation that today society and economy needs, is not simply, it's also, but not simply, technological innovation. Technological innovation was the kind of like karma of the 20th century, is increasing productivity and was really the main core of competition. Now it's something more, much more complex because resources are scarce and because people are much more demanding. So it's not simply about improving productivity, but creating technologies which are relevant to cities and regions, which are able to increase productivity, especially to increase quality of life, and to create a kind of balance between past and future generations. So it's about sustainability. But innovation depends very much on creativity, and that's why cultural creative industries perfectly fit in the context of the new economy. And the same concept of creativity is not simply technological creativity, but again, it's something much more complex. It's technological creativity on the one hand, but it's also economic creativity, so new business models. It's also about scientific creativity, and it's about cultural-based creativity. So it's about you artists and creative people. What is cultural-based creativity? Again, this is a concept that was proposed in a study that was made in 2009, which was the European Year of Creativity. So basically the Commission asked, what about the relation between culture and creativity? So we know very much about technological creativity, but how can culture stimulate creativity and propose new forms of innovation? And it's through this research and through a series of case studies that we came up with this definition of culture-based creativity as a kind of new skill linked to the ability of people, of artists and creative professionals to think in new ways, to propose new ways of thinking and divergent thinking, to challenge the conventional and to create also new ways of communicate based on the symbolic values and on the affective. So it's basically linked to the ability of these people to create new vision, to elaborate new ideas, but of course in a different way from what an engineer would do, from what a scientist would do. And, well, this is probably, a very simple example because everybody knows about that. Everybody knows about Apple, but I don't know how many people know that what is, I think, the key point in Apple, and one of the key points of success is, of course, not simply to have the best engineers in their team, but also to work together with designers, which make sure that their products are not simply like technologically excellent, but we are also distinctive in terms of design, in terms of symbolic values that they can communicate. And also, that's something that probably we should be all aware of, is that much of this, the new technological devices that Apple or also other companies are creating are cultural, so they depend on cultural content. So there is also a very, what is really important is that cultural content is really not only important to stimulate new forms of creativity, but also to make advance the technological industry. So and this is like the of course, the kind of benchmark, but what can companies in general can do? And I think there are several ways in which companies can integrate this culture-based creativity. It's about, maybe can you zoom on a different picture? Maybe start from this one. Yeah, okay. So it's about creating new products. One example is 3D cinema, but it's one among many others. It's also about creativity and destructive thinking at work. There are very nice projects right now spreading out throughout Europe, especially in Northern Europe, but actually also in Spain, about ways of integrating artists in companies, with visual artists, performing artists, creative professionals, trying to stimulate new forms of creativity, new ways of thinking among the management team and the staff within companies. Also to create new space to better dialogue and to stimulate new ideas. And this is a picture actually from a project called Creative Clash. And one of the members of this project is Ciuc, which is a Swedish organization actually working exactly on this, on how to bring artists in companies and how can artists bring new projects which are of course relevant for the company, to create something that is relevant for the companies, from a new project to a new product or service, or simply a new way of working. Can you zoom the left? Yeah. And it's also about how to create new experiences. So again, the idea of new experience in the new economy. So how to create new ways of accessing the cultural heritage, and this is about immersive experiences and virtual visits. And then something maybe much more traditional, but it's about, of course, communication and branding. You probably everybody knows about Benetton and about their strong collaboration with the photographer, with the Italian photographer, Oliviero Toscani, who has created, well, a series of pictures which is not simply advertising. For me, it's really very nice pieces of artwork, which basically build on the values of the company. So it's not simply about advertising, but about communicating what the company is and what the company want to build on, which is diversity, which is dialogue between different cultures. And I think this is very, very much clear from his pictures and from his advertising campaigns. So this is more about like economic innovation, but of course we would what to forget about social innovation or economic innovation, much more linked to cities and regions, which is of course what interests you the most. So culture-based creativity is also a tool to regenerate, so not simply the company branding, but also the territory's branding, the territory's image. Well, there was the example from Edinburgh before, but I will make another example about the city of Nantes, who completely regenerated the city and created a new image and completely reinvented itself as a tourist destination. And I will go through this in a minute. It is also about urban regeneration with lots of examples, and I will show you more later on. And it's of course about also social cohesion and capital formation. This is of course much more something very qualitative, very difficult to grasp. But I have, well, the example of Nantes I think is also significant from this point of view, because it's thanks to their urban regeneration that they created a new area where now people go, and before it was completely abandoned. So it's about also creating a new community, a new identity for local communities. So either we speak about more like territorial innovation, social innovation at the local level, or company innovation, cities and regions remain the key actors. Actually, when I speak about new forms of innovation, basically the key point is about how to stimulate new forms of collaboration between cultural and creative professionals and new sectors of the economy, new also policy department. So it's about a concept that is called spillover effect. So how the cultural creative industries can impact on the sectors of the economy and society. And cities and regions actually are the best place to stimulate this kind of spillover innovation. And there is lots of literature actually about this that show that the knowledge transfer are much more effective in like limited geographical space. But beyond, I mean, the literature and academic references, what we can probably simply and easily see is that cities and regions know very well their territory. They know very well who are the main stakeholders that could collaborate. They know very well their local business base. They know very well their cultural actors. They know very well their creative, creative professionals. So they could really play a role in putting these people together, trying to create new forms of new ways of thinking and new ways of collaborating. And this can be done in order to break the silos that we were talking about before between the different policy departments or within the administration, the regional and local administrations. And of course, the spatial concentration are also there to facilitate the knowledge exchange. So while cities, especially small cities, very often are seen as a difficult place where innovation can happen, actually this, from another point of view, can be even an opportunity to facilitate a dialogue in the big cities. Sometimes it's difficult to create. And Europe. So we come to Europe. So what has Europe done to facilitate this kind of interactions, to encourage these new forms of thinking, these new ways of thinking? Actually, I don't know how much familiar you are with the European policy context, but lots have been done in the last more than 10 years now. Actually, after the economy of culture study, a first policy document, the first cultural policy document at European level was produced. It's the Agenda for Culture, which for the first time recognized the importance of culture not only to create dialogue and to stimulate diversity and to build like the cultural project built on the diversity of Europe, but also as a tool to stimulate creativity. And this was very much new at the time. And then lots of other policy documents have been produced until now. Well, there has been in 2010 the publication of the Green Paper on culture and creative industries, and much more recently a real strategy document. And this is, I think, an interesting one, because for the first time, and this is very much actually taken from other policy fields, not only we have like statement on the importance of culture as a tool to generate economic growth, to stimulate innovation, but also as a sort of soft power tool, so to communicate the cultural value of Europe outside Europe and to other countries. But in this document, there are also like some actions, real action plans that the European Commission is putting forward in order to support this sector. And one, new thing actually that the European Commission is right now working on, and I guess you're all familiar with this, is the new Creative Europe program. The Creative Europe program, so it's part of this action plan. On the one hand, is the follow-up to the current culture and media program. On the other hand, actually, there are several new elements. The first one is a new budget. It's an increased budget. A budget that has been increased. Well, the Commission proposed to increase by 37%, but now it has to be approved by the Council and the Parliament. So it's a new budget to fund, again, a new culture program and a media program, but there is also a new cross-sectoral trend, which is about a new guarantee fund. So the European Commission is setting up a guarantee, which could be used by banks in the different member states, with a view to facilitate access to loans, to bank loans. Of course, access to financing is one big issue for the sector, and very often cultural and creative organizations are not the sufficient guarantee to access these loans. So basically the Commission they want to do is, on the one hand, help the sector to access the loans, but also in the long term to create a new thinking and to create less dependence on public subsidy and encourage the sector to diversify their source of funding. What is also very much interesting in this cross-sectoral trend is not simply this access to finance measure, but what I find very interesting is also that the Commission wants to support new actions to create, to build the audience, a new kinds of audience, in order for culture to reach all the audience and also the social disadvantaged people. And I think actually there is really a need to create a kind of European cultural audience, while at the moment we have more like national cultural audience, not really a European cultural audience, which is really, at the very beginning. And also the Commission wants also to support new actions to experiment new business models in the digital world. So while we have, again, the culture and the media program, of course the Commission wants to point much more on innovation and on innovative actions in order to really exploit the innovative potential coming from